water froze.
All right, we're going to go ahead and get things started here. I am. Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's what, there's Guy Claus.
I told her I was going to call her. Now I can go.
Her house is fine. Here.
Yeah, one here.
I wonder how
Zero is fine.
I don't know if they did, but they just turned the water off. They might have just turned the water off.
I don't mind it.
Yeah. Well, their house is really pretty
We
short,
are.
pretty tight.
We are on a new one.
I tried to get mine tied, but 1920.
Yes, yes.
I gave Monty an extra one. Yep. He's doing okay. I mean, he doesn't drive anymore, and so he has to walk down. Yeah. All right, well, we're going to get started here. We are finally back after a 2-week break. Actually, 3-week break since we didn't have church last Sunday. And so it's been a while. Huh? It was. Well, the thing is that you put it out there. We're going to have church, but use your own discretion. But then it's like, you know full well the people that shouldn't be getting out are going to be the ones that do get out. And they don't need to be, so it was, let's, hate to do it, but let's keep everybody safe, because when I walked down last Sunday, and when I got down here to the front door, I was frozen, and wind chill was negative 39, so it was cold. Yeah. All right. We are on lesson number 9 here in the parables. The parables at a feast, Luke chapter 14, verses 1 through 14. Lesson title, The Way Up is Down. So here's our text. One Sabbath, when he went to dine at the house of a ruler of the Pharisees, they were watching him carefully. I want to stop right there. It's like their favorite pastime with Jesus. Let's just watch him. See what he does. See what he says. See how we can catch him doing something he shouldn't. So anyway, picking up there, behold, there was a man before him who had dropsy. And Jesus responded to the lawyers and Pharisees, saying, Is it lawful to heal on the Sabbath or not? But they remained silent. Then he took him and healed him and sent him away. And he said to them, Which of you, having a son or an ox that has fallen into a well on the Sabbath day, will not immediately pull him out? And they could not reply to these things. Now he told the parable to those who were invited, when he noticed how they chose the places of honor, saying to them, When you are invited by someone to a wedding feast, do not sit in the place of honor, lest someone more distinguished than you be invited. Lest someone more distinguished than you be invited by him, and he who invited you both will come and say to you, Give your place to this person, and then you will begin with shame to take the lowest place. But when you are invited, go and sit in the lowest place, so that when your host comes in, he may say to you, Friend, move up higher. Then you will be honored in the presence of all who sit at the table with you. For everyone who exalts himself will be humbled, and everyone who humbles himself will be exalted. He said also to the man who had invited him, When you give a dinner or a banquet, do not invite your friends or your brothers or your relatives or rich neighbors, lest they also invite you in return, and you be repaid. But when you give a feast, invite the poor and the crippled and the lame and the blind, and you will be blessed, because they cannot repay you. for you will be repaid at the resurrection of the just. Thoughts? Comments? There's a lot of stuff going on here.
Okay, I do have a question.
Uh-huh.
The very first time. Okay, ruler of the Pharisees. What kind of order did they have in the Pharisees?
It's a social order. If you're part of you have the general aristocracy, if you want to call it the upper crust. But you would also have Pharisees that are members of the royal family, the ruling family. And so that's even higher. At the time of Jesus and just prior, so when Jesus was born and the years prior, the Hasmonean dynasty ruled Israel, and then Rome comes in and they set Herod up. Now Herod's not a Hasmonean, but his wife is. And so you have that next level up. It's just like any ancient culture. There's a caste system. So you can have a Pharisee that is super elite, and you can have a Pharisee that's salt of the earth, if you will. Doesn't come from anybody, but happens to be part of the party of the Pharisees. You look at Paul, for example. I think Paul floats somewhere in the middle. He's from Tarsus, a Roman colony, born a citizen. To be able to be part of that type of setup, you have to be somebody of some means. And also look at Paul's teacher. Gamaliel was his teacher. That doesn't come cheap. So he may not be in the royal family, but he's of a higher echelon. And so, ruler of the Pharisees, you're talking about one of the head honchos. There is who you're looking at. Anybody else? Good question. All right, well, we dig into the context and content of this. In our previous lessons, we noticed on the basis of his actions that some people viewed Jesus as a revolutionary, some even viewing the parables themselves as pictures of revolution. Whether we view Jesus as a revolutionary or not, it's certainly clear that Jesus lived his life and carried out his ministry on the fringes of society, and for that reason was the object of much unwarranted criticism from Jewish and religious leaders of his day. What he said to them there at the end of the parable, unthinkable in that culture, because it was basically what we would call a caste system. How you were born is how you live, and very rarely do you move from one level to the next. Sometimes it's based on race, sometimes it's based on family, but it exists, and it exists in pretty much every culture in the world. One of my best friends, Saloniki's been here several times. He's Haitian. Down there, not all Haitians are equal. He comes from a lower caste. You know why? Because his skin is dark. If you're a mulatto, a light skin, you automatically have a higher social setting. Because basically, in that situation, you have some French or Spanish blood in you that makes you lighter skinned. Oh, how we as humans love to separate things. We separate by color, we separate by thought. Heck, I even remember when Noah was a little kid, he loved his trucks. And he had different types of trucks. And I always thought it was funny that when he played with them, he would separate them out by type. Hot Wheels here, Chuck trucks here. And he was very particular about how he did it. And I'm like, you know what? It's almost like in our nature to separate ourselves, isn't it? That we view people differently than we view ourselves. And so Jesus is kind of calling them on the carpet for it. Now, I won't call Jesus a social revolutionary so much as I will call him a spiritual revolutionary. But every group tries to co-opt Jesus. Every group wants Jesus to be one of them. I mean, heck, I saw a picture here a while ago of a piece of artwork, and it was really strange because it was a sculpture of this little girl, and she's got her hands up and she's holding hands with two people. One of them is Jesus and one of them is Vladimir Lenin. Because Jesus was a social revolutionary, or so they say.
He was only pointing out to the Pharisees.
Huh?
He was only pointing out to the Pharisees
Yeah.
wrong. And
What the law actually said.
yes. And they, of course, I don't know how many years it took them to do it, but over the decades, they had altered the original laws anyway. They kept adding and adding and adding
Oh yeah. Well,
to them. So you couldn't possibly hardly even move on this.
yeah. Jesus, you will never see Jesus condemn the law.
No.
You will see him condemn the traditions of the elders.
And that's what they are.
Well, and his statement to them, and it was very true. These men sit in Moses' seat. Listen to them. Do what they say, but don't do what they do because they don't practice what they preach. And even when Jesus stands up and says, you have heard it said, ... but I say to you, he's not saying anything new. He's reinforcing what the law originally meant. That they had not necessarily lost, they had rejected it. I think it started out well-meaning, but then in the end, this wall that they erect around the law supposedly to protect it, it wasn't protecting the law, it was protecting their privileged position.
And he says that when he says, in other words, don't exalt yourself. Which
Yeah.
is what they've done.
Because
Be humble, be of the people.
yeah, being a caste type system, you want to be at the top. It is that pride of place. But Israel as a whole, if you look at it, Israel as a whole has a problem with that.
Was it the Levites that were set apart?
Yep.
To be priests, so they were kind of the elite, were they not?
They were.
I mean,
Now the difference with that is they got left out in the land allotment.
No, that's true, they did.
They got 6 cities, 3 on each side of the river.
Yeah, but they got something though.
Oh well, and
Yeah, I was gonna say, they were taking care
oh,
of.
they were taken care of, but it was a give and take. But yes, a lot of the times, and you asked about the Pharisees earlier, you would have priests that fall in that system. And well, and part of it too, when you come down to the time of Jesus, the priest had to be a Levite, but the priests were appointed directly by Rome. It was a political appointment. Rome knew better than to mess with the religious issues. We're going to pick a Levite, but it's a political appointment.
I have a question I need.
Okay.
It's like mud. Were the Pharisees, were they from the Levite tribe? Were they just appointed religious
Well,
leaders?
the Pharisees were a religious and political party. I would almost say it's kind of like a denomination,
Okay.
if you will. You have your separations based on your beliefs. So you would have, yes, because in the time of Jesus, the Sadducees ran the temple. The party of the Sadducees was made up predominantly of priests. The party of the Pharisees was made up predominantly, if I remember this right, made up predominantly of the laymen, those from the other tribes. And their beliefs, and Paul calls them on it. I guess to put it in modern day terms, your Pharisees were your legalists and your Sadducees were your liberals. Your Sadducees didn't believe in the resurrection. Your Sadducees didn't believe in the spiritual things. There are no angels, there is no afterlife. They have a lot in common with modern.
That kind of is surprising since they do come from the Levite tribe, that they would.
Yeah.
at least
Well,
have-
it's just over the years. You've got 3,000 years of history and exiles and all of this influencing what you believe. And so the Pharisees looked at them as, we are the true Jews.
But they should have all gone back to the beginning and read everything how it was originally stated.
Well, I'll put it in modern terms. Not that we have the corner on the truth, because no church does. But that's what the Restoration movement did. Our branch of churches, what we do, we like what the Reformers did. You know, Martin Luther and Calvin and Zwingli and those guys. They tried to fix something that was irrevocably broken. The 18th or 17th century Reformers within our movement, and there were others, we weren't the only ones, that it's like, why try to reform something that's irrevocably broken? Why don't we just look at the Bible and see what they did? Read the Bible, see what they did, and leave it at that. Now, have we got it all right? No. I wish the Jews would have done that. Because they could have booted the oral traditions, they could have booted the oral law, and they tried. You know, they're rebuilding the temple. What happens? They find the scroll of the law. Let's see if this thing's real. So they take it to a prophetess by the name of Huldah. Is this legit? Yes, this is the law. And what do? They read it. Everybody comes together and they read it. You just wish they would have done more with it. But they didn't. And so by the time of Jesus, you have divisions once again. Even in our own movement, it starts, if I want to put a year on it, 1801 really is where the movements start to kind of come together. How long did that unity last? Less than 100 years. And you split off, and you've got the non-instrumental churches over here that don't use instruments in worship, and you've got the disciples of Christ over here that believe anything and everything, whether it jives with Scripture or not, because we're humans. And so there's going to be division. Did I see?
There's something else to think. After so many years, how can you say, oh, I'm from the tribe of this? Because there's got to be intermarriages and things. You know, it's...
There are some, but here's the thing. Most individuals did not intermarry from tribe to tribe. It stayed, for the most part, if I understand it right, within the tribe. Not that you couldn't marry someone from another tribe, and in the end they're all related anyway because it comes from all of the brothers, well, and the two sons of Joseph thrown in there, you know, Manasseh and that which were sons of Joseph. So,
They probably were more likely to marry outside the Jewish nation than they were within each other.
Yeah, it's an amalgamated mess is what it is. And you know what? It still persists to this day. I said here, it's been several months ago, you go over to Israel today, and the Jews and the Arabs are fighting each other. Genetically speaking, the Jews and the Arabs are more closely related to each other than anybody else. But they're cousins. You know, it goes back to Jacob and Esau. And it goes back to Isaac and Ishmael. And so it's a convoluted mess. And it always will be. Anybody else? Good questions. Good questions. All right, so on the occasion of this parable, we again find Jesus being carefully watched. One incident that influenced the giving of the parable is that Jesus had just performed a great humanitarian miracle by healing a man who suffered from dropsy, a disease that attacked the limbs and the internal organs, especially the liver. Why the afflicted man would be at this dinner is anyone's guess. The best hypothesis is that he was brought with hopes that Jesus would heal him. Regardless of the reason why the man was there, his miraculous healing caused an uproar amongst the guests at the feast. Can you heal a person on the Sabbath? The law says yes. There are certain things that you can do. Look at the parable of the Good Samaritan. Well, we don't want to help this guy because he might be dead, and then we'll be unclean. Be unclean. There are thousands of priests. Nobody's going to care. But it's that super, hyper stringent adherence to the law, which is often a cover for apathy. That's why Jesus says, hey, if you had a person or an animal fall in a well, You're not going to say, hey, sorry, you got to wait till sundown on Saturday. Tread water. Good luck to you. But they discuss it. Today even, in Jewish circles, if you are a Jew and you are going to synagogue school, which all good Jews, all good Orthodox Jews do, they will sit there and they will discuss that. Is it lawful to do all of these myriad of things that we wouldn't think twice about? But they do. What's more lawful? To follow the letter of the law or show somebody mercy? Well, what Micah said, what does God require of us? To love justice, to do mercy, and to walk humbly with God. That's all Jesus is doing. Jesus is basically quoting Micah, is what he's got going on here. Jesus knew their minds. He knew that they were watching him to see what he would do. This caused him to ask the question. And here's the difference. In this, Jesus beats them to the punch. He doesn't wait for them to go, was it lawful for you to do that? Jesus himself asked, is it lawful to heal on the Sabbath or not? Luke says they remained silent, so Jesus healed the man and sent him away. Why didn't they say a word?
Fear.
Huh?
Fear.
Absolutely. Jesus has, if you read through the Gospels, and it's one of my favorite things about the Gospel narratives, the scribes and the Pharisees, the teachers of the law, are always trying to make Jesus look bad. And every time they try to make Jesus look bad, Jesus wipes the floor with them. You would think after a while they'd give up, but they don't. But here, you are in a place that is crowded with people, and anybody who's anybody is there. This is the last place you want to lose face, because this is an honor-shame society. You know, outside of the caste system, it's also the honor-shame, honor-shame type society. In that part of the world, and it's one of the things that Islam co-opted from Judaism, was the concept of honor and shame. And they took it to an extreme level that not even the Jews would, because of course in Islam, you dishonor your family to a certain degree, they'll just take you out and kill you, even if it wasn't your fault. So you have that type of mentality. We call it the Eastern mentality of things. Well, when I was in Laos, it was an honor-shame society. Now, they wouldn't take you out if you did something and kill you, but you would be shunned by the family if you brought dishonor. And you didn't ever want to take responsibility. Okay, say you're carrying a pile of plates and you drop them and they shatter on the floor. In that culture, the response was the plates fell. It wasn't that I dropped them, it was that the plates fell, because you want to save face. So here, that's basically what you're dealing with. These guys want to save face, so they clam up.
They did it because they knew it was within.
Oh, they know the answer.
They knew that it wasn't.
Oh, heck yeah.
That's why, because somebody would call them out if they said it.
Oh, it would be obvious to anybody there what the answer is. But it's kind of like that thing of, I want to twist this around and turn it so I can use it as a gotcha question. They didn't have the opportunity to do it this time. See, we can imagine the tremendous feelings of resentment against Jesus that these men held. Jesus then asked them, if one of you have a son or an ox who falls in the well on the Sabbath day, will you not immediately pull him out? And they did not answer him. We could almost feel the tension that grew in the room, but no one dared attack Jesus. Many people in Jesus' day, and our own, are constantly watching for the reason to attack the actions of others, especially when those actions run counter to what they believe is right. Here's the crazy thing. This is a banquet of honor. You have the highest classes of people there. This struck me the first time I studied this. Why is Jesus there? Jesus may be a descendant of David, but so is a third to half of the population. He's the son of, in their words, the son of a carpenter. There's nothing super special about him, or at least no one would think. He's become a rabbi of some great renown, and he's healing people. His reputation is spreading, but really in some ways he's a man of no reputation, because remember, he's from Nazareth and nothing good can come out of Nazareth. And so he's this weird dichotomy. Why is Jesus even there? My guess is he was invited just so they could make fun of him.
Popular guy of the day.
Yeah. He's a popular guy of the day. He's in the middle of his 15 minutes of fame. Let's bring him in and see if we can have some sport with him. See what all the hubbub is all about. But the Pharisees knew. They'd been watching Jesus literally from the minute he was baptized by John. He's been under a microscope.
I like the last part of that where it says, many people in Jesus' day and our own. It's true. People are constantly watching and trying to trip up a Christian.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Should live in a bad life or whatever.
Well, here's one of the things that always, I find it mildly annoying, but sometimes I have to just laugh because there's no other way to deal with it. I love it when the world critiques the church for doing things it refuses to do. When the society criticizes the church for how it helps in natural disasters, how it helps in certain situations. And it's like, you're not doing anything. How is it that you can sit back and criticize us? Oh, well, somebody does this or somebody does this. Well, that money could have been used for something better. I'm like, are you Judas? You know, sell the perfume and give the money to the poor. And what's Jesus say? Mind your own business.
Well, I think back about, was it 3 years ago now, when New York was so bad with COVID.
Yep.
And Samaritan's Purse.
Yep.
Which is a Billy Graham.
Yeah.
They said, we'll come in, we'll set up our tents, we've got our own medical teams. We don't want you involved in this.
Yep.
Because you're religious.
Yep.
You would probably turn.
And people died.
And people died.
And people died.
They feared because they were Christians, they would turn
Yeah.
somebody away
Well,
because of their beliefs.
Yeah. Well, there's one on the medical side, and then just on the other side of it, here a couple of years, I think it was 2 years ago on the Super Bowl, a group had got together, a Christian group, and put out the commercial, He Gets Us. And it just blew my mind. How many people criticize, well, that money could have been used to feed the poor. Like, you don't give a rip about feeding the poor.
They do not.
And if that commercial makes somebody maybe pick up a Bible that hasn't in years and reestablish a relationship with Jesus, I think it's well worth it. Although I did have to give Sean Penn, the actor who, self-described atheist, when everything blew up in Haiti, the earthquake and all that here several years ago, I mean, he stood up and he says, I'm not a believer, but he said, I have to give it to the Christians. They're knocking this out of the park, and the rest of us are, searching around trying to find which direction we're going. But all in all, the world is hypercritical. And they treat us the same way they treated Jesus. Let's be hypercritical. And why? Because if Jesus just does what Jesus does and they don't attack it, it makes them look bad. Why does the world attack the church? Because the church makes them look bad. Not that we're out attacking them. Well, maybe some are, but every group has its idiots. And there are people that do things in the name of Jesus that you just want to reach out and smack the tar out of them. Because they shouldn't be. Don't be a jerk for Jesus. But all in all, the world hates us because we are different. That kind of said here a couple of weeks ago, be weird for Jesus. Anybody else?
Why does the world hate the Jews so much?
That is generational. Why does the world hate the Jews? Can be answered by one Bible verse. You will be my people and I will be your God. And those who bless you I will bless, and those who curse you I will curse.
Well, no, some people also say because they crucified Christ, but that doesn't make any sense.
That's an excuse.
He was Jewish too, so.
Yeah, okay, yeah. The Jews, the Christians have used the blood libel. Because the Jews did say, and it was stupid on their part, his blood being on our own heads. And the Christians took that as God now hates the Jews. No, because God doesn't hate anybody. Do the Jews have the privileged position they used to? No. It's the church. The church is now Israel. Now, is God done with the Jewish people, those that have Jewish blood, Jewish DNA? If I read Revelation right, I don't think so. I honestly think that as we get closer to the end, you are going to see a mass conversion of Jews. I think you're seeing it right now, of Jews that are coming to know Jesus, and I think we're going to get more and more of it. Now, I don't buy the whole dual covenant thing that the Jews are still saved by the covenant with Abraham, because that covenant's been fulfilled. But the world hates the Jews because God chose the Jews. And they're also jealous because the Jews have an innate ability to succeed. They have been exiled multiple times. They have been enslaved. They've been in prison. They've been mistreated. Hitler tried to wipe them out, and he wasn't the first, and I don't think he's going to be the last. Anti-Semitism is the original racism.
I can't believe how it's rooted like we had again.
Oh, it's a generational thing.
And on our college campuses, calling for the Jews to be murdered.
Yeah.
I can't
Well,
believe that.
and the thing is I think you get a certain amount, and I will say college students, and I don't want to put everybody in the boat, but a lot of kids at state universities today are idiots. Because they're buying into the culture. And you have kids out there, what you're saying here, and like I said, I'm not painting everybody, don't take it that way, but when you have college students that are out marching and screaming from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, it's like, do you know what that means? That means you are going to kill every Jew in Israel. Do you get that? And I don't think they do. It's, oh, this is the latest social thing. I'm like, educate yourself. But Anti-Semitism is nothing new. I mean, go back. Haman tried to kill them all because he was jealous of them. So anti-Semitism is basically one of the earliest forms of racism, and it has persisted, and it will always rear its ugly head. You think the Klan just disliked black people? Oh no. They hated Catholics and they hated Jews. Oh, yeah. Well, and the fact of the matter is, some of the richest families in the world happen to be Jewish. And so it's greed on the part of people looking and going, I want what the Jews have. It's envy. Yeah. They view the Jews, and they will identify it as the greedy Jew when they're the greedy ones because they want to kill the Jews and take what they have. And so, no, it's this whole cultural thing of, there are winners and losers. Our world, unfortunately, this is where the sociology department at your state universities have come in, and that's why I said stupid college students, where it's, you're either an oppressor or you're the oppressed. And your goal is to fight your oppressor. Well, do you see the circular logic in that? Because if you're oppressed and you're fighting the oppressor, well, when you conquer your oppressor, don't you then take his place? Oh, but we can't talk about that. But that's nothing new, because that existed in this world. The Jews looked at the Romans. The Romans are our oppressors. Rome came in, and I'm not saying Rome was right in what it did. I mean, even their own historians blasted the Roman imperial government for conquering the world. Tacitus said you go in and you wage war and you make a desert and you call it peace. So we all have our issues. But what Jesus is pointing out here is these are spiritual issues. And they start right here. 90% of what we're facing in the world today is a spiritual issue, and it starts right here.
I don't believe most people realize what a spiritual war is, even Christians. So.
No, because we have turned spiritual into this esoteric, Eastern mindset of meditation. And that's what being spiritual is. No, being spiritual at its very core is ethical and moral. When Paul says that God has written on the hearts of men His law, even those that don't have benefit of the covenant, and that's my paraphrase, you know right from wrong. And at the end of the day, people will say, well, I'm spiritual, but I'm not religious. What are they saying? I'm going to create my own religion so I can go on doing what I'm doing. Anybody else? All right. I'm going to read the last section here. We'll leave purpose and application for next week. Another incident which provoked this parable was Jesus' observance how the guests picked the places of honor at the table as they began to be seated. In ancient times, gathering like this occurred around a U-shaped table, and the guests reclined on their left elbow and ate with their right hand. The host would sit at the head with most honored guests sitting near him. It was in this situation that Jesus was observing how the guests chose how they would sit, providing excellent background for him to teach a lesson. So yeah, you have a U-shaped table. The host would sit in the middle of the center table. The primary guest would be on his right, the secondary would be on his left, and then it spreads out from there. So, get past the Last Supper. It's a beautiful picture. It does not fit reality. In fact, I saw a meme that one of my friends put up on the internet. And it was a picture of the Last Supper. And it was Jesus, table for 26, please. Yeah, but there's only 13 of you. Yeah, but we're all going to sit on the same side. to mimic the painting. We're all going to sit on the same side of the table. And that was the way that you ate. Mom always said, sit up straight at the table. Don't lean. Get your elbows off the table. But Mom, they ate with their elbows on the table in Bible times. They actually, yes, they reclined at the table.
How long were they at the table?
Hours. Because in the middle of that that would be where, your servants would come in and bring food, but that's also where your entertainment happened. Whatever your entertainment happened to be. So they're reclined at the table, and basically Jesus is saying, don't fight for the right-hand position. Go down and sit at the end, humble yourself, and if you are someone of high standing, the guy that's hosting the party is going to say, you can't be sitting here, and bring you closer up. Anybody else?
That would be the most uncomfortable way to do that.
Well, for us, because we've never done it, it's not really our culture.
I wonder how many people got choked right there.
Yeah. Well, and the fact of the matter is, when you think about it, depending on the specific time frame, where you are at, you are actually reclining on the floor. And your table is only about that tall. Just enough to keep your food on. When I was in Laos and traveling around Southeast Asia, that's the way we ate. You sat, cross-legged on the floor, and your food was on a big round platter in front of you, all the different pans, and it was on a spinner. And you just ate as it turned. You turned if you wanted something, and that was the communal meal, and that's how everybody ate. And I said, that's probably as close to what Jesus did as I'm ever going to get.
The left-handers didn't get invited.
Oh, I'm out of luck because I am a left-hander. Well, in fact, when I was in Laos and I was having dinner, and in that culture also, and Jewish culture, men and women ate separately. And so it was me and Chan, and we were eating. And I asked him, I said, I don't want to pull a cultural faux pas here. I'm left-handed. Is it okay for me? And he's like, I don't care. I said, I know. I said, I'm a student of your culture. I want to ask. And he's like, the grandparents would probably have issues with it. But the grandparents weren't there. So a lot of it's culture. All right, well, we'll call that good for today. You guys we'll go ahead and let everybody in. But fantastic questions. I'd rather have the questions than just sit there and read on my paper.